The world has been in existence for billions of years. Just think about the amount of history that can be found within that period. In this video, I'm going to dive into some weird and fascinating historical events that you won't believe actually happened. Number 1. Alexander the Great was buried alive. According to historical records, after a banquet, Alexander fell ill with high fever, severe pain, and increasing paralysis. Soon afterwards, he was pronounced dead. Remarkably, his body showed no typical signs of decomposition for 6 days after his death, leading to the speculation about the nature of his illness and death. Some modern scientists and historians think Alexander might have had Guillain-Barré Syndrome, a rare condition where the immune system attacks the nerve outside the brain and spinal cord. GBS causes muscle weakness, paralysis, and sometimes breathing problems, but it doesn't affect mental functions. This means Alexander could have been fully conscious but paralyzed. If Alexander had GBS, his semi-death might have been a state of paralysis that looked like death. Without advanced medical knowledge, people of his time could have mistakenly thought he was dead, explaining the unusual preservation of his body and delayed decomposition. While this idea is interesting, it still remains uncertain due to lack of clear evidence. Number 2. The corpse of a dead pope put on trial. The strange event known as the Cadaver Synod happened in 897 AD. Pope Stephen VI ordered the digging up and trial of his predecessor, Pope Formosus, who had died about 9 months earlier. Pope Formosus, who served from 891 to 896, had a controversial time as pope, marked by political and church conflicts. After his death, Pope Boniface VI briefly took the throne of the pope, before being succeeded by Pope Stephen VI. Stephen VI, driven by strong political motives and pressures from powerful groups against Formosus, took drastic action. Through the Cadaver Synod, Formosus' corpse was dug up, dressed in Pope's garment, and seated on a throne to face charges. A deacon was appointed to speak for the dead Pope. The charges included breaking church rules by trying to become the Bishop of Rome while still the bishop of another place, among other accusations aimed at discrediting him. The trial's outcome was decided beforehand. Formosus was found guilty, his time as pope declared void, and his acts and ordinations were cancelled. The corpse was stripped of his pope's garments, 3 fingers used for the blessings were cut off, and his body was thrown into the river. This event caused outrage and scandal within the church and among the public. Pope Stephen VI's actions led to his downfall. He was removed from office, imprisoned, and choked to death. Stephen VI's replacement cancelled the Cadaver Synod's orders, restored Formosus' reputation, and reinstated his ordinations. The Cadaver Synod remains one of the most infamous episodes in the church history. Number 3. A pig sentenced to death. In 1386, a strange and dark event took place in Normandy, France. A pig was put on trial for murder. This case is one of the weird examples of animal trials, which were not uncommon in the Middle Ages. The incident began when the pig attacked a young child, who later died from the injuries. In response, the pig was captured and treated as a criminal. It was imprisoned and brought to court to face murder charges. During the trial, the pig was given legal representation, as was usual in animal trials of that time. A lawyer was appointed to defend the pig, though it was found guilty. The trial followed formal legal steps similar to those used for human defendants. After being found guilty, the pig was sentenced to death. The killing was carried out by hanging, a method usually reserved for humans. These trials and executions were not just meant as punishment, but also served as public shows and demonstrations of the law's authority. It was believed that treating animals as accountable under human laws strengthened social norms and the rule of law. Number 4. The shortest war in history. The Anglo-Zanzibar War, the shortest war in history, took place on August 27, 1896, and lasted only 38 to 45 minutes. The fight arose from a disagreement over who should be the next Sultan of Zanzibar, a British-controlled area off the coast of East Africa. The war started after Sultan Hamid bin Taiwani died on August 25, 1896. His cousin Khalid bin Bangash took the throne, declaring himself Sultan. This move was against British interests, as they preferred Hamad bin Mohammed, who was more aligned with their policies. The British, led by Consul Basil Cave, demanded that Khalid step down and leave the palace. Khalid refused and fortified the palace with about 2,800 supporters, including the palace guards and civilians. The British gathered naval force in the harbour. At 9 a.m. on August 27, after Khalid's refusal to step down, the British issued a final warning that expired at 9:02 a.m. When Khalid did not comply, the British ships began attacking the palace. The attack caused a lot of damage and many injuries among the Khalid force. Within minutes, the palace was in ruins and the Sultan's flag was shot down. Khalid fled to the German embassy for protection. By 9:40 a.m., the fighting was over, marking the end of the brief conflict. The British forces quickly took control of the palace and installed Hamad bin Mohammed as the new Sultan, securing a British victory. The Anglo-Zanzibar War resulted in about 500 deaths on the Zanzibari side, with minimal losses for the British. The war highlights the power dynamics of the late 19th century and how European powers showed control over their colonies and territories. Number 5. The man who survived two atomic bombings. The man who survived both the Hiroshima and the Nagasaki atomic bombing is Tsutomu Yamaguchi. He was a Japanese engineer working for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. On August 6, 1945, Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima on a business trip. Just as he was preparing to leave the city, the United States dropped the atomic bomb known as Little Boy. Yamaguchi was about 3 kilometers from ground zero. The explosion caused severe burns in his upper body, ruptured his eardrums, and temporarily blinded him. Despite his injuries, he managed to find his way to a shelter and stayed there overnight. The following day, he returned to his hometown of Nagasaki, arriving on August 8. Despite his injuries, Yamaguchi reported to work in Nagasaki on August 9, while describing his experience in Hiroshima to his supervisor. The second atomic bomb Fat Man was dropped on Nagasaki. Yamaguchi was again about 3 kilometers from the epicenter. Remarkably, he survived the second blast, although he sustained further injuries and his existing wounds worsened. Yamaguchi spent several months recovering from injuries. Despite the physical and emotional trauma, he went on to live a long life, actively speaking out against nuclear bombs. He became a vocal advocate for nuclear disarmament and shared his experiences to promote peace. In 2006, Yamaguchi addressed the United Nations in New York, speaking about the devastating impact of nuclear weapons. Yamaguchi passed away on January 4, 2010, at the age of 93. His story continues to be a powerful testament to human resilience and the enduring impact of nuclear warfare. If you want to learn more about the war just like you did in this video, subscribe to this channel so you can see more videos like this.